They always assumed you'd be there when they decided to come back. Like a favorite restaurant that stays open late. Like a reliable backup plan tucked away in their emotional emergency kit. Like a safety net they could count on no matter how many times they jumped off the cliff of commitment, only to scramble back up again. They took your patience for granted, mistook your understanding for weakness, and confused your love with desperation. But now, something has shifted. The familiar pattern has broken. You're not responding to their breadcrumbs anymore. You're not available for their temperature checks. The door they always assumed would swing open at their return has quietly, firmly, permanently closed. And for the first time in their carefully controlled emotional world, they're about to discover what real loss feels like. The price they'll pay isn't immediate. That's not how cosmic justice works. It unfolds slowly, like interest compounding on a debt they never realized they were accumulating. Every time they chose distance over closeness, every moment they picked fear over love, every instance they selected their comfort over your connection, they were building up a bill that would eventually come due. Now the bill has arrived, and the amount owed is staggering. They're about to learn that some things, once lost, cannot be recovered. Some people once pushed away one too many times don't come back. Some doors, once closed by someone who finally learned their worth, stay locked forever. The painful price they'll pay isn't just losing you, it's living with the knowledge that they threw away something irreplaceable with their own hands. Chapter 1, the slow realization of what they destroyed. At first, they don't even notice you're gone. Not really. They're too busy congratulating themselves on successfully creating distance again, too relieved that the pressure of your expectations has lifted, too satisfied with their return to the familiar comfort of emotional solitude. They mistake the absence of relationship stress for the presence of peace, not understanding that they've simply traded acute discomfort for chronic emptiness. The realization creeps in like water through hairline cracks in a foundation. It starts small, a moment when they reach for their phone to share something funny with you before remembering they can't. A song on the radio that they automatically think she'd love this, before the reality hits that your musical preferences are no longer their concern. A restaurant they pass where you had that conversation about your childhood, and for just a split second, they feel the urge to make a reservation before remembering there's no one to take. Days pass, then weeks, and the small moments accumulate like snow that eventually becomes an avalanche. They begin to notice how quiet their world has become without your voice cutting through their isolation. How colorless their experiences feel without someone who actually cared about the details of their day. How hollow their victories taste when there's no one who genuinely celebrates their successes or offers comfort during their failures. The evidence of their mistake starts mounting like a case file they can't ignore. They realize they've lost their most reliable source of emotional support, the person who actually listened when they talked about their fears and dreams. They've eliminated their connection to someone who saw through their defensive walls and loved what they found underneath. They've destroyed their bond with the one person who was willing to stay patient while they figured out how to love without terror. Their daily routines, once shared or at least witnessed by someone who cared, now feel mechanical and meaningless. The coffee tastes different when there's no one to tell about the weird dream they had. The sunset looks emptier when there's no one beside them who finds beauty in the same simple moments. Even their successes at work feel hollow when there's no one waiting at home who's genuinely interested in hearing about their day. They start comparing their current existence to what they had before, and the math is devastating. They traded someone who knew their favorite comfort food for the freedom to eat alone every night. They exchanged someone who remembered their important deadlines and family drama for the independence of managing everything solo. They gave up someone who made their small apartment feel like home for the privilege of returning each evening to empty rooms that echo with their own footsteps. The comparison shopping begins unconsciously. Every interaction with others highlights what they lost. Their co-worker's casual mention of her husband making her laugh becomes a reminder of how you used to text them funny observations throughout the day. Their friend's story about his girlfriend supporting him through a tough project brings back memories of how you celebrated their achievements and helped them process their disappointments. They discover they've lost more than just a relationship. They've lost their translator for the world. You were the person who helped them make sense of their own emotions, who could read their moods better than they could, who offered perspectives that helped them navigate challenges they couldn't solve alone. Without you, they feel like they're trying to read a map in a foreign language, stumbling through situations that used to feel manageable when they had your insight to guide them. The truth settles in slowly, like sediment in still water. They didn't just lose someone who loved them. They lost someone who actually liked them. Someone who found their quirks endearing rather than annoying, who appreciated their sense of humor, who was genuinely interested in their thoughts and opinions. They're beginning to understand that such combinations are rare, that finding someone who offers both passion and compatibility, both attraction and genuine friendship, doesn't happen often in a lifetime. Chapter 2. Living with the ghost of what they had. The memories don't fade the way they expected them to. Instead, they seem to gain clarity and intensity, like photographs developing in reverse. What they thought would become distant recollections instead transform into vivid, present tense experiences that ambush them at the most unexpected moments. They discover that losing someone doesn't make the memories disappear. It makes them immortal. Your absence fills their space more completely than your presence ever did. The ghost of what they had haunts every corner of their existence with a persistence that borders on supernatural. They can't make coffee without remembering how you liked yours. Can't watch a movie without hearing the commentary you would have provided. Can't go to sleep without feeling the phantom weight of your body beside them. The missing warmth where you used to curl up against their back. Every familiar place becomes a museum dedicated to what they destroyed. The restaurant where you had your first real conversation now feels like sacred ground they can't bear to enter. The park where you walked on Sunday mornings has become forbidden territory. Even their own apartment contains so many traces of your shared life that they feel like they're living in a shrine to their own stupidity. The cruelest part is how the good memories shine brighter now than they ever did when they were happening. All those moments they took for granted, when they were too focused on their discomfort with intimacy to appreciate what they had, now play on repeat in their mind with devastating clarity. They remember exactly how you laughed at their terrible jokes, how you looked when you were concentrating on something important, how you felt when you fell asleep in their arms, trusting them completely. They find themselves conducting conversations with your memory, explaining decisions you'll never hear about, sharing experiences you'll never be part of. They catch themselves buying things you would have liked, then remembering with fresh pain that your preferences are no longer relevant to their life. They see something beautiful, and their first instinct is still to share it with you, followed immediately by the crushing realization that they forfeited that privilege. The ghost follows them into new experiences, making everything feel incomplete. They go to a concert and think about how you would have sung along to your favorite songs. They try a new restaurant and imagine what you would have ordered, what you would have thought of the atmosphere. Every experience becomes a comparison between what is and what could have been, if they hadn't been so afraid of their own capacity for love. Sleep becomes a cruel refuge where the ghost feels most real. In dreams, you're still together, still planning futures they'll never have, still sharing the easy intimacy they threw away. They wake up reaching for you, then spend those first conscious moments remembering all over again that you're gone by their own choice. The transition from dream to reality becomes a daily reenactment of their loss. They start understanding that they're not just mourning you, they're mourning the version of themselves that existed when they were loved by you. The person who felt worthy of affection, who had someone who believed in their potential, who experienced the security of unconditional acceptance. That person died when the relationship ended, and they're left with a diminished version of themselves that feels fundamentally incomplete. The ghost even invades their attempts to move forward. Every new person they meet gets measured against your memory, and everyone falls short. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real in a way that felt irreplaceable. You knew their flaws and loved them anyway. You understood their fears and helped them face them. You saw their potential and encouraged them to reach for it. Finding someone who offers that combination of acceptance, challenge, and genuine care feels impossible when they're constantly comparing everyone to the ghost of what they had with you. They realize they're living in two timelines simultaneously: the present, where they go through the motions of daily life, and the past, where they're forever replaying what they had and lost. The ghost of your relationship has become more present in their daily experience than most of their actual current reality. A constant reminder of the price they're paying for choosing fear over love. Chapter 3. The desperate search for a replacement. The panic sets in around month 3, when the initial relief of being free has worn off and the reality of their loss starts sinking in. They look around their empty life and suddenly understand with terrifying clarity that what they had with you wasn't just another relationship. It was the relationship, the one that made all the others feel like practice rounds. And now they have to find a way to replace the irreplaceable. They approach dating like someone frantically searching through a junk drawer for a specific key they threw away, knowing they need to find it but having no idea where to look. They create profiles on every app, refresh their wardrobe, practice charming conversation in the mirror. They tell themselves they're ready to find something even better, but their desperation leaks through every interaction, like cologne applied too heavily. The first few dates feel promising simply because they're not alone anymore. Anyone willing to sit across from them at dinner feels like progress, like evidence that they're moving forward rather than drowning in regret. They mistake temporary distraction for genuine connection, confusing the relief of having someone to talk to with actually having something meaningful to say. But then the comparisons start. Their date laughs, but it's not your laugh. She's intelligent, but she doesn't get their humor the way you did. He's attractive, but he doesn't make them feel comfortable in their own skin the way you made them feel. Every interaction becomes a measurement against a standard they're slowly realizing no one else can meet because you weren't just compatible with them. You were specifically, uniquely, irreplaceably perfect for who they are. They start getting pickier, then more desperate, then pickier again, in a cycle that makes less sense each time around. Someone doesn't text back fast enough, so they're clearly not interested enough. Someone texts too much, so they're obviously clingy. Someone wants to take things slow, so they lack passion. Someone wants to move fast, so they're probably not serious. Every potential partner gets eliminated for failing to be you in ways both obvious and impossible to articulate. The search becomes increasingly frantic as they realize they're not just looking for someone to date, they're looking for someone to fill a U-shaped hole in their life. They need someone who will listen to their work problems with genuine interest, who will remember their sister's birthday, who will laugh at their stupid observations about TV shows. They need someone who makes them feel like the version of themselves they liked best, the person they were when they were loved by you. They try to reverse engineer what made your relationship special, creating checklists and criteria like they're shopping for a car rather than connecting with another human being. Must love hiking because you loved hiking. Must be family-oriented because you were close to your parents. Must appreciate their cooking because you always complimented their terrible attempts at making dinner. They don't understand that it wasn't your individual preferences that made the connection work. It was the mysterious chemistry that can't be replicated through matching personality traits. The dating apps become a source of daily frustration rather than hope. They swipe through faces that all start to blur together, each one representing another person who isn't you, another conversation that won't flow the way yours did, another potential disappointment when the chemistry fails to materialize. They become experts at first dates and disasters at second ones, charming enough to generate initial interest, but unable to sustain it once the other person realizes they're competing with a ghost. They start lying to themselves and others about what they're looking for. I'm just having fun, they tell friends who ask about their dating life. I'm not looking for anything serious right now, they claim while internally screaming that they want exactly the kind of serious relationship they threw away. They pretend they're playing the field by choice when really they're striking out every time they step up to bat. The most painful realization comes when they meet someone genuinely wonderful, kind, attractive, interested, available, and feel absolutely nothing. This person checks every box on paper, represents everything they should want, and their heart remains completely unmoved. They go through the motions of a relationship for a few weeks, hoping feelings will develop, but instead feel like they're betraying both themselves and this innocent person by trying to force something that isn't there. They finally understand that they're not looking for someone new. They're looking for you in different packaging. Every search is really a hunt for another person who will make them feel the way you made them feel, who will know them the way you knew them, who will love them the way you loved them. But that's impossible because you weren't interchangeable, weren't a type or category they can find again. You were a specific person who fit with their specific weirdness in a way that happens maybe once in a lifetime, if you're lucky. The search slowly transforms from hope to desperation to resignation. They begin to suspect they may have thrown away their one real chance at lasting love, that the universe might not give them another opportunity like the one they squandered. The panic of potentially spending their life alone begins to feel less like fear and more like the natural consequence of their choices. Chapter 4. The crushing weight of their own choices. The worst part isn't losing you. It's living with the knowledge that they orchestrated their own destruction. Every morning they wake up to the reality that their current suffering is entirely self-inflicted, that they are both the architect and the victim of their own emotional disaster. There's no one else to blame, no external force they can hold responsible for their misery. They did this to themselves with the precision of a surgeon and the wisdom of a fool. The regret doesn't arrive all at once like a sudden injury. Instead, it builds slowly, accumulating weight like snow on a roof, until the structure of their peace of mind begins to buckle under the pressure. Each day brings fresh evidence of their catastrophic judgment, new examples of how they traded gold for fool's pyrite, how they mistook their greatest blessing for their biggest threat. They replay the breakup conversation in their mind like a detective studying crime scene footage, looking for the exact moment they could have made a different choice. They remember your face when you finally gave up trying to reach them, the resignation in your voice when you stopped fighting for the relationship. They recall how you looked at them, not with anger, but with the kind of sad understanding that was somehow worse because it meant you saw their patterns more clearly than they did. The regret becomes a constant companion that whispers the same brutal truths on repeat. You had someone who loved your weird sense of humor and you walked away. You had someone who supported your dreams and you chose fear instead. You had someone who saw your potential and helped you believe in it, and you threw it away because intimacy felt scary. The voice never stops, never tires, never runs out of evidence to present against them. They start cataloging all the moments they chose poorly, collecting their mistakes like a prosecutor building a case against themselves. The time you tried to have a serious conversation about the future, and they deflected with jokes. The evening you planned something special, and they complained about being tired. The morning you said you loved them, and they responded with thanks because the words felt too heavy to return. Each memory becomes another piece of evidence proving they were their own worst enemy. The weight of their choices begins affecting every aspect of their life. They can't make simple decisions anymore because they've lost faith in their own judgment. If they were wrong about something as fundamental as your relationship, how can they trust themselves about anything else? They second-guess everything from career moves to what to have for lunch, paralyzed by the fear that their decision-making apparatus is fundamentally broken. They discover that some mistakes can't be fixed, some words can't be taken back, some opportunities don't come around twice. This isn't like failing a test they can retake or missing a job interview they can reschedule. They failed at love with the one person who was willing to be patient while they learned how to receive it properly. They missed their chance with someone who saw their best self and believed in it even when they didn't. The knowledge that their suffering is preventable makes it exponentially worse. If you had left them for someone else, they could rage at the injustice, blame circumstances, maintain their dignity as a victim of forces beyond their control. Instead, they have to live with understanding that every tear they cry, every lonely evening they endure, every empty conversation with people who don't really know them, is the direct result of their own cowardice disguised as wisdom. They begin to understand that they didn't just lose a relationship, they lost their credibility with themselves. How can they trust their instincts about anything when their instincts told them to run from the best thing that ever happened to them? How can they believe in their ability to create happiness when they systematically destroyed their greatest source of joy? They've become unreliable narrators of their own lives, unable to distinguish between genuine threats and phantom fears. The crushing weight settles into their bones like arthritis, a constant ache that reminds them of their limitations every time they move through the world. They carry the knowledge of their failure everywhere, to work, to social gatherings, to family dinners where relatives ask about their love life and they have to explain why they're alone again. The weight makes everything harder, every task more exhausting, every day a marathon they're not sure they have the strength to complete. Chapter 5. When Second Chances Don't Come. The final lesson arrives with the brutal clarity of winter morning light. Some doors, once closed, never open again. Some people once pushed beyond their limit don't come back no matter how much growth and self-awareness their former partner displays. Some chances, when missed, disappear into the past like shooting stars. Beautiful while they lasted, gone forever once the moment passes. They watch you move forward with your life through the tiny windows that social media provides, and slowly realize that you're not just temporarily angry or taking space to process. You're genuinely building a new existence that doesn't include them, creating happiness that doesn't depend on their participation, becoming a version of yourself that no longer needs what they withheld for so long. The door isn't just closed, it's been removed entirely. The frame filled in, the wall painted over. This realization hits differently than all their previous ones because it carries the weight of permanence. They can handle the idea that they messed up, that they hurt you, that they have to live with regret. What breaks them is understanding that their story with you is actually over, not paused or temporarily disrupted, but genuinely finished in a way that no amount of growth or apology or changed behavior can undo. They see you thriving without them and realize they weren't as essential to your happiness as they assumed. You're laughing in photos, pursuing goals you mentioned during the relationship, surrounding yourself with people who appreciate what they took for granted. Your life looks full and rich and complete without the space they used to occupy, proving that while they're diminished by your absence, you've somehow become more yourself without them. The hardest part is recognizing that you're probably better off without their chaos, their hot and cold patterns, their inability to commit fully to love when it was offered freely. They can see now that their behavior was exhausting, that their fear-based decision-making created instability that you absorbed and managed for far too long. They understand that you didn't just lose a relationship when you left, you gained peace. They have to face the possibility that this is how their story ends, not with reconciliation and growth and a beautiful second chapter, but with the quiet dignity of someone who loved them walking away when love wasn't enough to overcome their limitations. There's no dramatic confrontation, no final fight, no closure conversation, just the gradual realization that they're no longer part of your narrative. The fantasy of winning you back slowly crumbles as evidence mounts that you've moved beyond needing their validation, their presence, their love. You've found ways to meet the needs they couldn't meet, developed relationships with people who don't require careful emotional management, created a life that flows smoothly without the constant turbulence their fear created. They finally understand that some prices can only be paid once, and they've already spent their currency with you. The patient forgiveness, the willingness to try again, the hope that they would eventually learn how to love without terror, all of it has been exhausted through their repeated failures to show up when showing up mattered most. Your capacity for accepting their limitations has reached its natural end. This is the final price they pay, not just losing you, but losing you forever. Not just dealing with regret, but living with the knowledge that they had everything they needed for happiness and systematically destroyed it through choices they made over and over again until you finally stopped believing they would ever choose differently. They learn to carry this weight not as punishment, but as education, understanding that some lessons can only be learned through permanent loss. They discover that while second chances don't always come, wisdom gained through devastating mistakes can prevent future tragedies with other people, in other relationships, in the life they'll have to build without you. The price has been paid in full. The account is closed. The lesson is complete. And somehow, in accepting this finality, they find the first real peace they've known since they walked away from love and discovered what losing actually costs.